have entered the chat with Colette and Matt. It's a weekly conversation about the world's most important topic. Let's all say it together. Industrial lubricants. Oh, sorry. Wait.
I quit.
Okay, that's our show. We'll see you next week.
Wow, can you wait, just think for a minute about listening to an hour-long podcast. Shit, even a 30-minute podcast about industrial lubricant.
I love this world. And
I was industrial lubricant? You love it?
I love industrial lubricants. Like, you know the world we inhabit where, like, when we and our cohorts go to conferences or cover things, it's like CES and it's E3 and it's all these like technology and entertainment things. But there are other people in this world who go to conferences about their industry, and they sit in rooms. I mean, this is pre-pandemic, of course. They sit in rooms and listen to TED Talks about whatever the fuck they sell or do. And there are conferences for industrial lubricants, and it's a big, people who go to like boat shows and talk about like boat engines, and that's their thing. Like,
I would gouge my literal eyes out. Like, I would gouge my eyes out. But if you're in it, then that's your shit. And I respect it. I think it's pretty wild. I'm just saying, man, amen to those people who are rocking out the industrial lubricant conference.
Someone's got to do it, because who's going to make our microchips if they're not running the factories, right?
Right. That's my whole point. And then there's us, who's like, I need to talk about how many times I've played Returnal this week, which is probably in the 40s or 50s.
Ooh, well, we're gonna get there.
I'll save it for the segment.
Save it for the segment. We were if there's one thing about the show, it's very rigid and focused, and we have to do everything by the book. Okay, so first order of business. I am your co-host Matt Silverman, here with Colette Bennett. Of the titular Colette and Matt have entered the chat, if you can imagine that.
I feel so high ranking.
Yeah, you do get first billing. You do get top billing on this show.
Sorry, I keep choking. I think I've drunk too much wine tonight.
So you had a big dinner and perhaps a cup or two extra. Of wine.
Yes, I had a little bit, because to me, this is the thing. When I cook, I don't just go in the kitchen. What I do is I go in the kitchen, I put on headphones, I set up my favorite music, I put my phone on a little stand so I can control everything, and then I pour myself wine or a beer, and like I groove out for like my entire kitchen experience. So
that sounds good.
It is good. I actually look forward to it, because like I like cooking, but only when I'm already doing it, if that makes sense. Like when I'm thinking about doing it, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. Yeah.
Everyone in the world is always like, oh, cooking is so relaxing and cook more, and it's part of it. I cannot get into cooking, because I always am doing the math equation of like, okay, if I'm getting the ingredients, that's going to be the prep, and then finding the recipe, and what am I going to eat, and then the kids want to eat that, so it does, and then and it's like 4 hours of prep, and then putting the ingredients together, and then actually cooking. That's another hour, and then setting and then you sit down to eat it, and that is literally 12 minutes of putting calories into your body, and then it's 2 more hours of cleaning up. And I'm like, yes, I got video games to play.
It's very little return. Actually, fun fact, people with ADHD actually hate cooking usually so much, because it requires a level of executive function that we do not typically possess, that often people that have ADHD will literally like not feed themselves until they're starving, and then be like, fuck, I have to go eat, and like shove literally whatever is in the house like into their faces so they don't die. I have done this more times than I can count. And also I have a friend who once told me that she did this exact thing, also has ADHD, and was really low on groceries, and so all she had in the pantry that she could eat was like one of those like instant like scalloped potatoes kind of things, and you're supposed to make it with milk, but she didn't have milk, so she ended up mixing it with water and then eating it out of the pot like a savage. And that has been one of my favorite images in my mind ever since.
I mean,
It sounds so bad, but also I'm like, yes, I know what that's like. Yes. Like
yes.
I was playing this game for 6 hours and then I was like, fuck, I need to eat. I've gone on too long and I've literally just been like, can I eat this like cardboard Cheerios box? Like, what can I do?
I relate deeply to this. You and I have discussed extensively outside of the podcast that our brains are very similar, and so the idea of going to a grocery store is the most boring, like irritating concept I could ever imagine. I hate it. The idea of prepping ingredients and doing all this process is super boring. So I can't be in the kitchen unless I am also listening to a podcast or music, because something else has to be going on for me to tolerate the boringness of this task in front of me. And yeah, I especially if I'm in a flow state, which regretfully has been fewer and far further between in this crazy time we've been in. But if I'm working on a project or usually producing some music of some kind, I'll be in that zone for many hours, and then I'll just be like, oh shit, did I eat lunch today?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm hungry.
Yep.
I don't know if I ate. And then I just go for those scalloped potatoes because that's all we got.
With water. Cheers. Neurodiversity, folks. It's awesome.
But it also allows us to do pretty awesome things like play 400 hours of the same video game over and over again. And that's a little segment we're about to call here. Video games. What are you playing? Before we talk about Returnal, because I am eager to return to Returnal and see how you are faring in this, harsh
alien universe.
I was going to say a landmark game, an important game. I think it's a hot game of the moment. But you'll tell me and everyone, like, do you think this game deserves a place in the pantheon of games? But before we talk about it, we asked folks in our Discord community what they are playing. And I think there's some stuff to chat about in here. Rabbit Ducky in Discord mentions Cookie Clicker, which recently came to Steam. And are you familiar with this? And I feel like the clicker, our clicker brains, I think there is something fun to be had here. Are you aware of Cookie Clicker at all?
I've heard of it, but I have no idea what the actual gameplay is like.
I'm not too familiar.
I think you must click.
You must click, but if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I should have looked this up ahead of time, like this game was created to basically make fun of dumb clicker games, and I think it's just about clicking on cookies and waiting a period of time and then clicking on more cookies to get more points to click on more things. Like it was a parody of these sorts of games, and it became so popular that it became a game and a phenomenon unto itself. And I always find that very, very fascinating.
It is. It really is. Like, I thought it was interesting because to go back a few episodes, the Old Friends Dog game, like, is basically like a clicker, it is,
right. But there's
pet
management stuff, right? You're managing your pets, right?
But it's a clicker, bottom line. That's what you're doing. And like, for the most part, I have like zero respect for that type of game, not because it doesn't take time and effort to make, but just because it's not my style of game. And like, that's fine. But, that game was a perfect example of, oh, wow, here's a clicker that, truly with heart, that did it differently. And I think that if that's possible, really, for any style of game, like I still hope that I'll see a platformer in the future that will make me go, wow, I've never seen that before. Wow, they really made this like different in a way I've never experienced, but still waiting on that.
Yep.
Like, I don't hate platformers, but like I've just played a billion of them.
Right.
is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this. It's like sometimes you're looking for that thing to iterate or push the envelope or combine mechanics into a new thing that's like, whoa, this is the hot shit. And sometimes you just want to click on cookies and that's all you want to do. And that's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's funny. I remember writing something for my personal blog, God, forever ago, probably like 2013, 14, 13. And it was like everyone was super obsessed with Candy Crush. Everyone. Yeah. And I was like, this game is garbage. Like, I'm mid-30s and I'm just like, I'm going to judge the shit out of this game. And I was dating this guy and I remember I wrote something on my blog about like how like games like Candy Crush were just a way to like make noise in your brain and like avoid like whatever it was that you really should be thinking about or whatever. And that it's just a form of white static. And he was pissed at me because he played it. And I remember him being like, like, oh, you got all snobby about this. And I was like, look, that's just what I think, and then now it's been a while and I look back and I'm like, wow, that was snobby. Like sometimes you really just need to fucking click something, like fuck off.
Yeah, well, but like I find myself craving that noise because if I am not filling my brain with something at any given point while cooking, while cleaning up the dishes or whatever, then I'm just alone with my own thoughts.
Right. And that can be a very difficult thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't care for it.
Yeah, I had to grow up a little bit maybe to better understand the reasons why sometimes like we need stuff to fill the space in our brains and like that's perfectly okay even if we need to be distracted at that time. But yeah, at the time I was just like, I don't play such common games.
The common folk.
I should look it up. I bet if I reread it, I would be like it would be hilarious, but also like so embarrassing.
Yeah. It's reading your old stuff and watching your old stuff is it's a tricky thing. It's like, well, that's the fear. It's like if you never make stuff, then you never grow and you never make better stuff. Right. But if you make stuff, then it's going to suck. Some of it's going to suck, and that's embarrassing.
That's the process. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Trust me,
a curse.
As a person that creates stuff that sucks, I'm just like, oh my God, I hate this so much. Everything I make should be perfect. Yes. But like, it just doesn't go that way.
Well, speaking of stuff that sucks, Megalith says that they are mostly playing Final Fantasy XIV. Got him. Just kidding. I'm sure it doesn't suck. It's a great game. It looks awesome.
Yes, Final Fantasy XIV's current cult is very fascinating to me because it's been around for such a long time. And like most of the people that I respect are like, this is my favorite story in the entire Final Fantasy canon. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
How? But I also know that I'm probably not going to invest in it right now. So I just don't like the format. Like I just like my games, my RPGs, solo. Like really. But like I've had people tell me you could play it solo, but like I've tried the interface recently-ish and I was like, I don't think I can do this.
Really? So what's interesting to me is that if when I crave online games and MMO games, I crave sandbox. I crave everyone's doing their own thing and everyone's working together and it's different jobs and stuff. And what actually puts me off of Final Fantasy XIV is that apparently everyone is going through the same story. Everyone is the hero of their own story, and that is the same. And there's plenty to do, and there's lots to grind. And obviously you're playing with other players and working together. But I actually kind of dislike the idea that it is a single player MMO kind of structure. And I'm saying that in a way of like, I don't know if it's for me, but maybe why don't you like the idea of a single player RPG that is also alive with content and that is brimming with new things to do? What's going on there?
I do not. I like my gaming experiences to have beginnings and endings. And I do not. I know a lot of people want an ongoing universe. Like I know how excited you are about like new No Man's Sky stuff coming. And I totally get that. And maybe if it was in the right universe, I'd be like, okay with making the investment. But like,
Right.
to me, that's just too big of an investment. Like,
The
there'd
right
be so
universe,
much for
though.
me to catch up on. Yeah. I mean, like, if it was like, hey, like, this is Supergiant, we're releasing like a new piece of the Hades universe, I would like, drool on the floor and then like grab my controller and like, go. But I guess what it is that like Final Fantasy 14 never pulled me in that way. Probably because by the time it came out, I wasn't really I had gotten to the point where I was like, I've played plenty of MMOs. I'm just not, into it like anymore.
Is there a franchise, a universe that if they said tomorrow, guess what, everyone? It's the Persona MMO live game. Get your characters ready. Here we go. Is there one?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not Persona. I mean, technically it is, but the root universe, Shin Megami Tensei, had an MMO, and I tried it because I was so obsessed with, and still am, and I still couldn't get into that.
Okay, interesting.
So I don't know. I mean, I remain like, maybe the right thing could appear in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, you never know. But like, I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah, other people that I really like trust their opinions are playing, but I don't think I'm going to play. Like, I downloaded a demo probably like 2 or 3 months ago, and I tried it, and I was literally like, I hate this, like in the first 5 minutes. I was like, I just didn't like all the shit going on around me. I'm like, no, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because that new game feeling, that feeling where you start something that you're excited about and you're like, whoa, what's this? Wait a minute, oh my God, you have to level this up. What's this gem? I don't know what that. Holy shit! And you're on the wiki and there is something about that feeling that I love, and it's I'm sure a psychologist can tell you that the newness, the honeymoon period of any experience, a product, a game, a movie, whatever, a relationship is an exciting time. And so the bigness of a live game, an MMO, there's so much to unpack as opposed to well, here's the story, here's part one of the story. And games like Breath of the Wild also do this of like, good luck, go anywhere you want. And that was also like, whoa, what's this? I could go here, and that is a single player experience that also does that. But I don't know, there's just something about, and Sea of Thieves is and was the last one that grabbed me. I was like, this looks cool. Oh, what? Oh, crap. Everything's here. What is this? I don't know. Factions? Oh, shit. Gems? I don't know. I just love that shit.
I will never say never in the case of games. I just don't know. But at this time, like I find this maybe is a good segue. So I don't want to go too far into it if we still would like to talk about some of the other things that our community's playing. But I find that the nature of roguelike or roguelite runs is like suiting my gaming play style really good right now, really well.
Interesting. Yep.
Because I'm like, okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll sit down and do, a run or two in Returnal, which by the way is 20 runs. That's what that means. Actually, no, I kid. It's probably more like 10, but it's still enough. And like, that for whatever reason fits well. But like my style of what I've enjoyed gaming wise has changed so much. Like when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I wanted like, straightforward JRPGs, maybe with some side quests. And then I would say maybe like, 10 years ago, I was probably kind of sort of still playing RPGs, but kind of like getting interested in like hybrids, like, stuff like Puzzle Quest, which was like, it's an RPG, but it's also a puzzle game. And got really interested again, like kind of went back to after playing a lot of them in my teens, point and click adventure style things like Maniac Mansion or, whatever the modern versions of point and click are, which there's a billion, but like my style has consistently changed of the things that like fit my groove best. And I think for my life as it currently stands, I like to be like, I'm going to spend an hour doing runs in Returnal and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to go do something else.
Well, number one, I am eager to hear what is keeping you stuck to Returnal. Meaning, like, we expected, we worried that Returnal would get very hard and there would be a wall, and then, there would that glue that sticks you to it would be like, this is too frustrating.
Mm-hmm. And that may have just not happened yet. I don't know.
Right. Perhaps. So we will get to that. And then I'm also very fascinated by who is changing. Are we changing? And do our taste change? And of course they do. Of course, tastes change as we get older. But I guess I have been attributing a lot of my personal shifts over the last couple years, and the last year has been, 2 years has been a crazy time where, we need a lot of time and we need to fill our brain with things that are not, the world and the news and the things of that sort. So there's something going on there, but I always felt like I discovered Warframe, which is obviously a live service, online interacting game with just truly some of the deepest, craziest systems that I've ever encountered. And I look at that time in my life, and now I'm like, not that Warframe ruined games for me, but I felt like I crossed a threshold of like, oh, this is how much space a game can take up in my brain. It's hard for me to go back to simpler games now, if that makes sense. And I don't know if I changed, my taste changed, or if I experienced something and now it's different. So I mark that as a point for me. And now I'm all about these ongoing live service, deep mechanic kind of things. And I'm not sure
I get that. I get that. I mean, I guess it makes sense that anything that you're into the culture of, that it would change over time and that you might find your own changes within it.
And games that have a culture that again, the games that are alive, that are not just like, well, we shipped it and here it is, and there's lots to talk about and lots to do, and you can enjoy that with other people online. But the excitement, the metaverse of like, I'm not even playing this game right now, but holy shit, there's a live stream of this new thing that's coming out, and 200,000 people are really hyped about it, and I'm one of them. That was something I never was part of before this kind of game, prior to the last 2 to 3 years. And now I really crave it a lot. And I find that interesting.
It is. It really is. Yeah. I love the idea of like talking to people about, and this is maybe even a show idea, talking to people about how their gaming styles have changed over the years, like what their groove was when they started, how their groove changed over time, especially people that have been playing games for decades. I think that's really an interesting kind of thing. So mayhaps we use that in the future.
I think we should. And also, like, I trace my roots to RPGs for sure, especially JRPGs. Like Final Fantasy VI is on my top 5 favorite games of all time. If I had to make a list, it's just those games shaped everything for me. They made me fall in love with what games are and could be. And I just wonder, like, was it a different time? We didn't have games that were bigger or more complex or a lot more alive than that. They just didn't exist. So not like we were not settling for simpler experiences, but we didn't have them. We didn't know any better. So it makes me think about kids today, like many kids first and early, like we played when we were 8 years old, we were playing, The Legend of Zelda or Final Fantasy, and kids today who are 8 years old are in an online server with their friends playing Minecraft or Fortnite. And it's like, wow, that is a radically different starting point than we had. And it's not a judgment. I just find it it's just different. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just different. I mean, you know, everyone's going to have their different, and it is super interesting to me to think about like Minecraft being someone's like what I would think of as like their root game. You know,
root game.
Yeah, like if I think about my root game, you know, it's The Legend of Zelda on NES, like no doubt. But like that game really does, you know, spread its tendrils kind of like into the soil of you, I think, and really hold on in a way that like, you know, it's formative to me. Like that's the formative game and or games that kind of set the foundation for what your style and interests are going to be like as you live your life.
And study the art form too, you know, and trace that lineage back. Just, you know, this is what we talk about here. I love it so much. Briefly, before we get into what we're playing, a little bit more chatter in the Discord. And please, if you're listening and you're not in the Discord server, the link is in the description of the show notes. Please join us there because
the link works.
The link works.
I worked all week to fix that shit. It now works. If you come into the freaking server, you can see everything, and it now works.
Beautiful. Techno says Destiny 2, there is a new season starting with a big new content that was announced, but he's saying that comes in February.
Yes.
But also, I randomly was passing by the virtual reality subreddit, which I, you know, is just in my feed, and I, you know, if it pops, it pops, and sometimes if I'm poking around in there, and somebody there was like, "Hey, I just painted this cool painting in VR, and it's like a painting on a canvas," and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And it's a program called Vermilion. I dropped it in the Discord. And Techno was like, "Yep, thank you very much." Tried it immediately and said that it's amazing. Hold on, I'm trying to find the Techno says really impressed with the quality of it. He was describing that you're in a room. This is VR. You're in a room. There is a canvas, and you have a palette, and you are using a variety of paintbrushes. And it's quite a bit more than like pick a color and then it's like the bristles on the brush, the pressure of the brush. You can mix colors, and you can sort of, if you do an errant stroke and you mix two paints together, then you're getting a different shade, and it's incredibly tactile. And there are like indicators, there are visual indicators that show you how hard you're pressing with this virtual paintbrush and the strokes you're doing. And there's something about the way the paint is rendered on the canvas where, and again, I haven't tried it. I'm just watching YouTube videos of it, but the light, you know, the light in the room, you can see the texture of the paint is what I'm saying. And depending on the brush and the canvas you are using, it is one of the most tactile art experiences I have ever seen. And not only have we just sort of seen it in passing, but Techno got in there and says it is as extraordinary an experience as it presents itself to be.
Wow. So when you were talking earlier in the week about VR painting, you weren't talking about Vermilion, you were talking about Tilt Brush, right?
Tilt Brush is rad. So, and it's different. It was made by Google, but recently became open source. I don't have the stomach to like install the open source version, so I just bought Tilt Brush. So I bought Tilt Brush on Steam as a standalone product, and you load it up and it runs great. And this is 3-dimensional painting. So you're in an empty 3-dimensional space, and there are many brushes, and you pop open your left hand, and you're scrolling through the brushes, and there's a brush for ribbons, and there's a brush for electricity, and there's a brush for neon, you know, and then there's a brush for paint and whatever. You can alter the size of your brush, and then you grab the color and the thing you want, and then you look around you, and I'm like doing this in, I'm making motions here that nobody can see, not even you can see, but you paint the air, and it's amazing because colors and shapes and bubbles and electricity and water and snow come out of your hand and go in the air. It's like as if the air was a canvas. And so you are painting sculptures around you. You can paint a sculpture or a scene. And very early on in our show, I talked about a VR experience called the Museum of Other Realities, which I highly recommend. Many of the scenes, especially the static pieces of artwork, were painted in tilt brush. So it's like if you were in a museum and you walked up to a canvas, you'd be like, wow, a painter painted this canvas. It's an amazing painting. But in this VR museum, you're walking around a virtual museum and then you see a 3-dimensional painting that you can walk inside of or shrink yourself down and go into the painting. Those paintings, which again feel, because they are 3-dimensional, they are almost more like sculptures, were created in tilt brush. And I am not a visual artist. I'm not a painter or a drawer. I don't have any skills in that department. But the tools that you get in tilt brush are like, they're so tactile that you can just go crazy. You can just do wacky stuff. Like, here's a brush that paints leaves or flowers. Wow. And then you're just like, okay, here's a tree. And then I'll paint some logs, and then there's a brush that makes fire. So I can just, there's a campfire. Wow. And there's a brush that makes smoke. And all of a sudden you are inside your own painting looking around, and it's vector based. So you can scale it up and down. You can grab your entire painting and go, grab it with 2 hands and go, and now it's in the palm of your hand. And then you grab it again, and now you're inside it. It's a remarkable piece of software.
If you paint something inside of Tilt Brush, can you save your final painting in some format?
Yes.
Okay. That I was thinking would be like a big one for me, because using something like that or something like Vermilion, I would be like, ooh, I really want like to be able to see my final thing and maybe save it,
Yeah, of course. You save it in Tilt Brush. Can't speak to Vermilion, but in Tilt Brush, you save it within the program. But I have every confidence that you could, and this might take some effort, especially now that it's open source. I guarantee you will be tools on the internet that's like, okay, export this to a file and then upload it, and then someone else who doesn't have VR can hopefully, you ever go on like a Sketchfab or anything where you're looking at 3D models or whatever, and you're in a web browser and you're rotating the thing so you can kind of look at the object in 3 dimensions, but it's a flat screen. You're not in VR. I'm going to assume that you can export a tilt brush painting and then view it in another format so that you can paint something awesome and then share it with someone who does not have a VR headset. Because who has a VR headset? Not your average person, of course.
Sure.
So, and I also presume you could probably like 3D, and then how will you 3D print fire? I don't know, but like I have every confidence the internet has found ways to export. Interestingly, they also had a poly model browser where you could, again, flick open your left hand and browse pre-made models made by the community. So you can go boop, boop, and then boom, I brought Pikachu into my 3D painting. And that was cool, but I believe they turned those servers off for some reason. Either Google's no longer supporting it, or people were uploading copyrighted things in there. Who knows? So that appears to be disabled, but it reminded me that, like, yes, there is a community and a library of content that can be mixed and matched and brought into your thing and out of you, and you can export things. And so, but short of that hardcore community that's doing awesome stuff, like just get in there and make trees, make comets and lightning bolts. It's just the coolest thing. And yeah. I think you would love it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to try it. And with this 4-day weekend looming in front of me, that might be the perfect time for me to do that thing. So I will keep an eye out. And if I try it this week, I will inform you what I think. But probably not till the show next week, because that's good content.
Yeah, no, save it. Don't enjoy anything. Just make good content out of it.
I made you some content.
Docky in the Discord says that they are still playing Teardown. Are you familiar with Teardown? This game looks rad, and Docky is reminding me to get this back onto my to play list, my queue, because it's dope.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. Like, I'm completely in the dark.
It is completely voxel based, I believe. Every piece of the environment is destructible and has different physical properties. And I believe the premise of the game is that you have to plan a heist. So you start at point A, and I think you're trying to accomplish some goal in a warehouse, in a factory, whatever. And you're setting up different scenarios. I guess it's like windows and explosives and vehicles and ladders and whatever. And you set everything up, and then it's like, boom, go. And you run through the environment, and all this chaos starts happening. And I think where this game gets wild is that like chain reactions of physical events lead to crazy amounts of like interaction and destruction. And so walls and trees and vehicles start to explode, and the voxels are going everywhere. And Docky's saying, like, you know, he recently got a really nice PC that runs everything really well. And the Teardown is the only game that is so like computationally intensive that like when shit hits the fan in Teardown, even the best 3090 is going to be dropping down to like 4 frames a second. And that's not like that's not a diss on this game. That's like, this game is wild looking. And so thank you, Docky, for the reminder.
Docky said, it's strange that burning down a building can feel so relaxing. Because I think I've said on the podcast before that when I play Diablo, I have a specific kind of like mode that my brain goes into, which is kill. And my husband and I have a joke about it. And so, like, you know, if I'm playing something and I have like a good groove of killing going on, it doesn't have to be Diablo. He'll be like, oh, kill. And I'm like, kill.
The relaxation of killing.
Yes, I love kill.
All right. Well, speaking of killing, what are you killing in your return to Returnal?
Well, that's a really good segue, because the game that I've most recently felt that kind of groove of kill, but like in the most pleasant of ways, in a way that I have to say Diablo games cannot really offer, is Returnal. And I think, and I don't know if this is anything like what the Dark Souls phenomenon is like, where you like hit something hard and you're like, okay, I'm going to die. I'm going to try again. I'm going to figure it out this time. This time I'm going to take what I learned in the last run where I died, and I'm going to go, oh, maybe if I try this, or maybe if I go do this. I never thought that would be appealing to me. Like, it didn't appeal to me at all in Dark Souls. But the Dark Souls universe is not appealing to me. Like, it's just not atmosphere I want. But when you put me in a very like Alien-esque, like, setting, like, I love Alien settings, and I love when they are deeply mysterious and strange and foreign the way that this one is.
It's so, I mean, I know enough about you I shouldn't be surprised, but it's quite astounding that setting, tone, mood, aesthetic is enough for you to overcome your aversion is a strong word, your trepidation around a game like this.
Well, yeah. And I've always said, I mean, my entire life, I've said, you know, I'm not good at games, not good at games, not good at games. And the last like year and a half of my life, I'm starting to realize that I really can't say it anymore, because am I executing the most like perfectly optimized thing? No, I might not be, like, every playthrough might not be like Twitch worthy, you know, for a speed run or something. But like, after playing Pistol Whip for so long, you know, I can't like place like number 8 on the world leaderboard and go, well, I'm not good at games.
Right.
Because I have done stuff like that with that game. And I'm like, okay, I've practiced for so much. I can't say that anymore. And so like playing something like Hades or something like this, like, I'm definitely not good at this game, but I think one of the things that's so appealing to me, there's several. One of the things that's so appealing to me, and I'm recognizing it from Hades, it's that groove of kind of like, okay, I'm going to go through this area, but the rooms are different. It's the same area, but the rooms are going to shuffle. So that seems to help keep it fresh. And Hades did the same thing. It's like, it's roughly the same area, but you'll never go into the same room series. So, I don't know what it was exactly, but like the gameplay for me is like extremely fluid and like feels like a rush, like a high. Like Celine, the main character, her run is one of the fastest runs and one of the most pleasurable runs I've ever like played in a main character. Like she runs so fast.
Oh, and like her actual running animation or whatever.
Her running animation and the way it feels when she runs is just, and also I think like her shooting and her attacks and stuff are also incredibly fluid and so maybe I'm seeing some of the benefits of the PS5. I don't know, but
I mean, isn't it interesting how important that fluidity, that animation, that feeling, the intangible feeling of motion in a game is so important.
Yeah,
to gameplay.
I mean,
it's make or break sometimes.
Right. Like when I and here's a perfect example. Like when I went back with Techno and we played the Diablo 2 beta, like when it came out, our first impression was, oh my God, this is so clunky and slow, because even though they had made so many upgrades, the basic movement of the character was not changed.
The sprite movement is unchanged. Yeah.
Right. Whereas like even when you play Diablo 3, it's much more pleasurable to move your character around.
Interesting.
And I think a part of this game is like, to me, like I have had many times at Returnal since I've started playing where I would like just barely dodge past an attack, or like something would like land on my ass and I would like manage to kill it in like that hyper second. And because it's so easy to die and go back to the beginning, the rush you get from surviving, like I've literally like yelled like, woo, like in my living room from like surviving an attack, and I'm like, it's like plugging into like a special kind of high that like I feel like I kind of had a little bit of a blast to that when I was playing Hades, but not quite like this. Like the fluidity of this game is just so, it's totally different types of games. Like Hades is so art forward and so stylistic. And like, I feel like this game is, I mean, obviously art forward too, but in a completely different way. It's just, I feel like it really does use the best of what the PS5 has to offer. And I think we talked last week about the haptics and, feeling the controller and what it does in your hand. And then last night, my husband was like, hey, you should plug in over-the-ear headphones and play it. And that was like a whole nother level of like, oh my God, like you can hear the directions from which like the enemies are coming, and you can hear the rain, and you can hear every little chirp and murmur and alien sound. And I was like, oh my God, like this is the way to play it. This is simply really terrific. Nice. Yes, it was cool.
Doesn't PS5 have support like 3D audio or whatever that is currently being called? And I don't know if you need special headphones to take advantage of that, but it sounds like the peripheral spatial sound awareness was working for you at least somewhat in that environment, right?
So I can't answer your question 100% sure because I'm not sure. But I can say that it's definitely, I would say if I had to guess that I was probably experiencing like a 3D kind of, like the sound is immersive, it's complete, it sounds like surround sound. It's really powerful, really memorable. So like that's one part of the puzzle. But like for me, another big part of the puzzle, no doubt, is that I'm super fascinated, and I love as a storyteller the way that they put this very juicy piece of story like so early in, and then kind of just let you do what you were going to do with it. one of the first things you find out at the very beginning, which I don't believe is really much of a spoiler because of the name of the game, is that, you crash your ship, you get there, you walk out, you find a body, and it's yours. And you're like, okay. Like, you're doing your little thing, you're reporting, like you have a little walkie or something like that. And you're like, I'm approaching this thing and let's identify this body and it's you. And you're like, okay. And the entire rest of the game is about figuring out why you keep coming here and keep dying over and over and over. And you don't know. But even in the biome I'm in, which I think there are 4 total, like I've already unlocked stuff, fascinating, like tiny, like snippets of memories that don't make sense without the full context. And I'm just like, I want to fucking know what the full story of this game is, because
there's no better hook than that. Come on, that opening hook, great.
I could look it up, but like I don't want to. I really don't want to. So I'm just like, So it's I think it's kind of like a combo of a couple of different things. It's like the high of the gameplay, the complete immersion of this like just expertly executed world, and like a story that's like, I just really want to know what happened to this person. What is going to happen to them. So it's a really interesting like crossing over of like multiple different influences. And like I said in, our Discord, I think yesterday, like I was like, am I a roguelike devotee now?
But maybe you are experiencing a genre and enjoying a genre that you typically don't, but this is ticking so many boxes that allow you to overcome, again, your trepidation around the genre. Let me ask one other thing technologically, and I think this is probably true. The speed at which the game, you die and it puts you back on the next run. I presume that loop is like, it's not like, oh shit, dead, loading screen, starting over. Okay. Hopefully it's being like, try again, go. Right?
So there is like a cutscene that varies in between. You'll get different little bits of what's happening to Celine's memories, how the crash goes, etc. But you can just hold X and skip it all. So like you could watch it if you wanted the circular nature, but like I usually skip it now because I've had to die so many times to learn. And that's just my style, right? Like, I'm sure there's people who played Returnal and like they've died 3 or 4 times and they got it. I'm not that person. I'm not that person. I have played, like one of my friends actually messaged me the other day. It was like 2 nights ago and I was in the middle of like a series of runs and he messaged me and he was like, stop dying. And I was like, I can't. I literally can't. Like, I cannot help it, But I did, and another friend told me, because I had been tweeting about it and about the challenge, and another friend said something clicked for me once I like finished the first boss, and I was like, okay. And so I kept playing, and there are 2 major events in the first biome that you run up against. One is the boss, of course, that's how you end the biome. But the second part is that you get a melee sword and you have to fight pretty hard to get to the point to where you get that sword. But when you get the sword, it's permanent. So you never lose that sword.
Yeah, when you first started talking about it, my main question was like, okay, what is the forward momentum? What is the progress that you keep? And I think at the point you were at, the pickups and the weapon augments were not permanent, right?
No. There are certain things you can get that like you'll get a little notification that says like, oh, this is permanent. But for the most part, nothing is really carried over except a form of currency called ether, which is very rare and hard to find.
Okay.
And if you get to the point in the biome where you get the sword, then things I've noticed changed a little bit once I got a hold of the sword. So like a cool thing, right, is like, in your brain, you're thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to get to the boss, if I'm going to move towards this goal, I'm going to have to move through the entire biome to get to the other end. But what happens when all those pieces are shuffling? What that means is that when you get the sword or when you go up against the boss and you die, the next time you go through the series of rooms of the biome, the boss might be the 3rd room, or it might be the 20th. So if you get lucky, like, you do a run and you don't have to go to the end anymore because that's how it works, but it's all a shuffle. Yeah, it's I think maybe the way that they like worked with the moving parts, like the more that I play it, the more I'm like, this is really expert. And I feel like for the first time I went up against the boss for being completely unprepared and not looking at any guides or anything, I did pretty well. So I'm like, okay, I can beat this boss. Like I feel sure that I can do that.
You have confidence, yeah.
Yeah, and I know that like it's going to be incredibly difficult after I beat it and continue, but like, yeah, my curiosity is just overwhelming. I'm like, I have to know.
But right there feels like a great design choice to keep you engaged, because you work so hard to get to a boss. You learn the level, you get the upgrades, or you get the loops, you get the systems, and you become an expert at this first biome. And then you get to the boss and you get obliterated and start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That is very frustrating. As we've discussed, Meg in Hades,
yes,
was that, and that frustrated me.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think I'm hearing here is like, you work really hard to master the first biome, and then you reach the boss, and it's not an insta kill, it's not an instant win.
No,
but you are like, no, I know enough mechanically about this game where I know in 2 or 3 more runs I could take this boss down. And that feeling of like, it's not easy, but it is achievable. At least on boss 1, you know.
Sure.
Boss 5 can get hard. That's great. But boss 1, you know, give the player some hope, I guess, is a design choice that I think feels nice in this context.
Yeah. And I mean, before I had the kind of click that my friend like said, you know, I had this before fighting that boss, getting the sword and feeling that click, I might have been like, man, maybe I'm like just hacking away at this hopelessly, but like I'm never going to make this progress. And then when I finally made the progress, I was like, ooh, I did make the progress. Okay, cool. So I'm not just repeating it over and over and over and like not learning anything new. I am learning new things, and I am figuring out how to implement them. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like the new grind, like, you know, RPG grind is out and like this grind is in. I don't know. Because I can't tolerate RPG grind at all anymore. Like I'm like, no,
2 different grinds. We've talked about it here. It's like the RPG grind is like, whether I'm good or bad at that game is somewhat irrelevant, because I can just overcome this challenge through leveling up, raising numbers. And the other kind of grind is like, no, you must learn. It is a purely educational
and
grind.
I love that. Like for whatever reason, I don't know, man. Like I have always like thought of my, outside of games themselves, I've always like felt that I was a person who like gave up easily, or like who did not have like tenacity as far as like this type of thing went. But that once again, this is like another piece that I'm now having to look at and go, well, actually, you know, you hacked away at Hades until you figured it all out, and you might hack away at this until you figure it all out, and you hacked away at Pistol Whip until you know, like entered the top 10 worldwide. Like, you know, there's something going on about it. There's some kind of, I don't know, puzzling that
What other roguelikes and roguelites have you enjoyed or played or bounced off of before Hades?
I don't think there's been any. I mean, usually to me, roguelikes were like, oh, that's going to punish me.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to be punished.
Yeah. The mystery of them, though, the idea, like, I joked in Discord, like, you're like, or you said, oh, am I a rogue-like player now? Ha ha ha. And I was like, you should play Rogue, the original game. And I have very fond memories of this in a world of point and click adventures and very linear JRPGs and stuff. Though that's the background of gaming, you know, in that time. And Rogue is older than this, but I probably came to it in the early 90s. The idea that like, oh, like this is, no one has seen this dungeon before. This is new. This is generated anew for me, and I might die to it. I might step in a trap and be dead in 1 second, or I might have the best run of my life. And in 1992 or whatever the fuck it was, that was like, whoa, this game is alive. Those other games are set, but this game it breathes. It has a life to it. And that was so compelling to me. So even though Rogue is incredibly punishing, I felt a lot of forward momentum. I felt about learning things like, you know what? You pick up a potion, you don't know what this potion does. It is not known, because potion J from your last run is something totally different in this run. And so you kind of start learning of like, maybe don't drink everything you find on the floor. Maybe don't, step into every corner because there could be traps, and you become good at this game. It's really cool. So it's, seeing that lineage balloon in mechanically in all these other games, Hades and Returnal and such, Spelunky, which I actually started playing and I'll talk about in a bit, is cool. It's cool to trace it back. So I'm not saying go play Rogue. I mean, I'm half saying go play Rogue and half not really saying that. But
well, I mean, looking at it, it's like, why? Like, if this is fascinating me, why wouldn't I want to necessarily like try the prototype?
It holds up. Meaning, like, sometimes we play games and when you play Breath of the Wild, you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing game. And then I think you would agree with me when I would say to a person who enjoyed Breath of the Wild, give NES Legend of Zelda a try.
Right.
Because that game, while obtuse in a lot of ways, holds the fuck up in a lot of ways, in extraordinary ways. And so I guess I'm saying something similar here of like, I think you will be astounded at how compelling Rogue is for a game from, I don't even know, 87. I got to look up when Rogue was developed, but yeah. So I'll talk about Spelunky in a bit. I'm trying to think if there's other roguelites in the recent past. There have been many, but I'm trying to think of any that I have played. Oh, Dead Cells. Have you played Dead Cells?
Yeah, no, I haven't, and it's so funny. When it came out, I was like, wow, that's pretty. I'm going to be terrible at that. And that was pre-Hades, pre-Returnal, obviously. So, yeah.
First of all, Rogue was originally released in 1980. So, wow. But also, look, you loved Hades and swear by Hades. You are loving Returnal. Like, enjoy Returnal, finish Returnal, or end your time with Returnal when it's time. But Dead Cells should be your next stop on this train. Nice. Because if memory serves, incredibly good movement and animation. 2D, of course, but the way you are describing Returnal's movement and combat, you will get the same satisfaction from Dead Cells systems and fluidity, and also lots of weapon choices. So I believe, if memory serves, what you're doing in Dead Cells, you are acquiring some sort of currency to unlock stuff, but also you can unlock different weapons as you go. So you don't keep the weapons, but they then become available to you on runs. So what happens is you unlock a weapon, you're like, oh shit, this sword is awesome. I love this sword because it's very fast and also causes bleed damage. And I think you can hold a sword and you can hold a second weapon, which is either like a shield or a ranged weapon. You can hold two weapons at a time and vary your attacks and strategies. And so you're like, oh yeah, this sword is great. And then you die and you lose it, but then you can be on the lookout for that weapon again so that you can suit your play style as you encounter weapons in the wild. And I think there's also a way to say like, no, I'm spending currency to make sure I always start with this weapon that I love on every run or something like that. And then it is just go time, and it is all about risk reward of like, how many when am I going to cut my losses and rush to find the exit, or when am I going to fight a bunch of extra enemies to get extra stuff? And it's beautiful and it's fluid. And, I never finished it. Like I also hit the wall where I was like, I've gotten enough Dead Cells out of Dead Cells, and I just love it and respect it, but I didn't complete it.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, if you're still on the roguelite train and still crave it after Returnal,
Right.
maybe you need a break
That's
in
where
between.
I could go. Yeah.
You should go there for sure.
I feel like we own it already too.
Yeah.
Like I'm almost positive that at this point, probably my husband like bought it. So I'll have to go digging and see.
And a great Switch game. Like if you just want to sit on like Hades was too. I don't know which system you played it on, but if you just want to kick back and switch it up, that's where to do it. Runs beautifully on Switch.
Excellent. All right, cool. All right. Well, this is exciting. Gives me some things to put on my list. And I remember when Dead Cells came out, I was like, wow, that looks so beautiful, but I'm not going to like this. So, yeah.
Because, right, it looks like, it's so hard. It's so intense. And it is. But again, the beauty of that light, the rogue light, is like you carry progress forward, as opposed to, the rogues themselves, the real, true, hardcore, like you get nothing. You carry nothing forward and start again, and that's all you get, and that's different.
I will report back. I'm going to now add this to my wish list, but I feel like we own it, and like I could probably play it this weekend. And also, I have a 4-day weekend in which I don't have a ton of plans, so I'm like, video games.
Yes. Is there anything better than that? Like besides, like Christmas morning or whatever it is you celebrate. There's nothing better than like, I have nothing to do and a big list of games to play.
Honestly, it's one of my very favorite feelings. And I think it like hits directly on a childhood feeling that was really probably similar of like, I went to Blockbuster and I rented my game and I have it for 3 or 5 or God knows, even 7 days. And I've got my one game that I spent my $7 on, and I'm going to go and play this game and enjoy it. Like it's a very singular kind of feeling that I really love. So, yeah. But now it's like the big adult version where you're like, I have all weekend and I have all the games.
And I can't decide which one to play. And I don't
have to return it on Monday. Yay.
You know what I recently read or heard somewhere that, do you remember the Lion King and the Aladdin games?
Yeah,
Classics. Beautiful. They played really well. Great animation, of course. And platformers. And I recently saw somewhere that like Disney or whatever studio developed them was like, no, we intentionally made these really hard. Like we put a really steep difficulty curve in these games because we hated Blockbuster and we didn't want people to rent these games. We wanted people to buy them because there's no way you could finish these in a weekend.
What?
And I was like,
great.
Devious.
Wow, I love that. That is like a juicy tidbit.
Isn't that cool? I mean, it's also douchey, I guess, but
no, it's not.
In that time, where Nintendo was waging war on Blockbuster, the video game industry and Blockbuster did not. It was a love-hate, I think, depending on who was publishing what. I think.
I guess, but also like fuck capitalism.
Right. But you're still paying the man somewhere along this chain, regardless.
Unfortunately, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
This is why I like to support so many indie developers, because then I'm not paying the man.
Yeah, you're paying Patreon. You're supporting maybe person through other platforms, but it's more or less going to the person. And I like living in that internet time. I think that's a good time.
Me too.
What else? Anything else, or has it been like Returnal front and center?
Well, the thing about Returnal for me anyway is that like I hit a point where I'm like, I've had enough for tonight. Yeah. And so sometimes that's like 2 hours or less. And so then I might like, stop and go do like a human being thing, like eat food or, wash my hair. But usually like my habit is at the very end of the day when I'm like, okay, I'm finished doing things. I've gotten ready for bed. My habit is to log into Old Friends and take care of my dogs.
There you go.
And it's usually something that takes me about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If I hang out longer, if I do some live streams for the dogs or whatever, I might stay longer. But like, really, like we were saying earlier, all I'm really doing is kind of tapping a bit. But I like taking care of the dogs, and I like unlocking their little stories and learning more about them. So yeah, that's really it for me right now. I don't know. Believe it or not, 2 games, one mobile game and one PlayStation 5 game is like a really full plate for me.
That's right. That's good. Yeah.
I only like to play one game at a time mostly, but like I feel like Old Friends doesn't like require like that same kind of attention. Like it's just something I get to do and enjoy,
I believe that's called living the dream, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, like I've had a few tempting moments, where I've been like, oh, someone told me to go look up this game, or like, oh, like, stupid fucking Steam store has got like the 505 games publisher sale going on right now. And I'm like, I hate you bitches. But, but like, I'm not really, I don't know. Like, I know there's a lot of people who love shopping on Steam and like, they're like, oh, like, they're having this sale, and so I got to go buy all these games that I'm going to play one day. And I don't really like doing that because I've tried it, and like I don't play the games ever.
I know.
So for me, it's kind of more like, I don't know, like I have to be ready to play the games like that day when I'm buying them and trying them. Yes. Like if I buy it and promise myself I'm going to do it later, that's never happening.
No,
never happening.
So, all right, I have a bit of a dilemma here. I have a picture to paint here, and I think in talking through it, I think I will arrive, and soliciting your help, I think I will arrive at a conclusion.
All right, I'm ready.
So, still just cannot love Sea of Thieves enough. So that's the main game, but I did take. I took a breather from it just to explore other things, and I have been craving a 4X strategy game, which, if you're not familiar, I think is like explore, exploit, exterminate, something. 4X stands for something, and this is like Civ or Crusader Kings or whatever. The very expansive board game simulation type games. And I don't know why. Civ 6 on Switch, I have started numerous games, and I don't know why. I love Civ. I can't stick with it. And every time I think like, I would really like a strategy game, and I think about Civ 6, and I'm just like, no, I can't bring myself to go back to it.
You can't do it.
I can't do it. And I don't know why. And that's a mystery to me, because I don't know. I think it's good. I mean, people love it. It's Civ. How could it be bad? And then I was browsing in my Steam library and noticed that I own Stellaris, which is a Paradox published 4X space colonization conquering game, which I've always wanted to play, have never touched, own it. So to your point of just like, at some point I noticed that Stellaris was on sale 5 years ago and was like, I need to own this game. And I've not played it. So I installed it, and I have been thinking about getting around to it. And then I also was like, inspired by Aaron Lindy, I believe. We were talking about the Steam Deck, and he was like, can I play RimWorld in the bathtub using a Steam Deck?
Yes, that was Aaron.
And the answer is yes. How could you not? And I have, in the back of my mind, I have been thinking about the touch controller on the Steam Link app, which is quite extraordinary. And what it does is it lays a fully customizable controller on your screen, which no one wants to play, an action game using touch controls. But for strategy games, it's doable. And so I was looking at Space Haven, which is a RimWorld-like game. But then I was like, and it's great, actually. I recommend that highly if you're looking for that type of game. And maybe I'll talk about it another time. It's still in early access and it's being developed, and it's very cool. But I was like, But what I really want is RimWorld, you know, and RimWorld is such a mouse and keyboard. It's so granular. It's like just menus and menus and clicking on tiny objects and things. And I was like, can I play RimWorld with the Steam Link touch controller? And the short answer is with a community made configuration of the controller. And if you don't mind squinting and tinkering and getting very fiddly with the controls, the answer is yes, if you set it up a very specific way. So in the last couple days, I've been kicking back on the couch in bed, running the RimWorld simulation on a new colony, and reminding myself, reacquainting myself with the memory that like RimWorld is a top 5 game for me. It is such an extraordinary game, and now that I can kind of just like set a tablet down on a table and check in on my colony at a slower speed, making sure everything's okay while sitting next to my wife and watching a show or chit-chatting or whatever, has been really nice. And it is let's call it a the poor man's Steam Deck sort of kind of thing, which has been nice to enjoy. So kudos to Aaron and thank you for the idea. And so I've been dabbling in that and thinking about Stellaris, and I have so I am all this to say, like, I'm sort of in between games, and I want to bring up this other thing, which is I really have enjoyed my time with Final Fantasy XII. Ooh. I like the story. I like the characters. And I'm struggling to, you know, well, the day's done, wrapping up, kids are in bed. It's game time. What am I going to play? And and even those nights when I'm not going to play Sea of Thieves, I want to play Portable. I want to play Switch. I want to kick back on the couch or in bed. I am struggling to find the spark, the motivation to go back to 12. And I feel bad about it. I feel guilty about it because I really like the game, but I feel very, I feel like the game does not explain all of its mechanics, and I feel like I'm not playing it well, and there is a lot of it that is tedious and shows its age, you know, and it's a lot of random encounters over and over and over again, and you can speed through them, but I'm just finding it dry. And this gets back to, you know, have complex games ruined my brain so that I can no longer really enjoy, you know, more straightforward linear games. And so my question for you is like, you know, should I see it through? Do I have your permission to walk away from it? Should I take a break from it and come back to it? You know, what do you think about all this?
Number one, well, my first impression, first of all, I love the fact that you're asking for my permission. I'm very amused by that. But yeah, first off, if you are not enjoying, I've now at this point in my adult life, I've given myself permission that when I am not enjoying a game, regardless of how much money I paid for it, I am allowed to quit.
But I can't tell if I'm not enjoying it. And it's a very weird thing to say, but I feel like when I'm sitting with it and when I'm in it, I'm like, yeah, this is a great Final Fantasy game, and I do want to know what happens, and I want to progress the story. But when I am not playing it, and I'm like, I'm ready to play something, there's no part of me that says, yeah, let's play Final Fantasy 12 again.
Yeah, see, I guess for me, like that is the indicator. You know, like I am tired and I do not know if I have the energy, but like I would still fucking love to get a few Returnal runs in tonight. And like
yeah, exactly.
That feeling, right? And like I feel like in the past couple of podcasts, you've been like, oh, I've been really enjoying Final Fantasy 12. And now I hear you in the point where you're like, I'm not really enjoying it in the same way anymore. And I know for me, like I had a harder time giving up on games I'd put a lot of time into at certain points in time. But I'm super curious how many hours in you are, because I quit around the 40-hour mark, and I'm very curious if you're near that.
I'm not that far. I'm probably closer to, if I had to guess, 15 to 20. However, did you play it in the original on PS2, whatever?
Yes, this is totally unrestored. Is where I stopped, like in the original version.
Original version. So the only thing I would say there is that I am utilizing the fast forward feature to speed through very repetitive encounters and walking through towns and to get to objective A, B, C, meaning I may have only put 15, human hours into the game, but I might be closer to perhaps a 25 or 30 hour mark where you would have been. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm going faster through it.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I'm at the 30 hour mark in the story, but I've only put 15 hours. And I'm estimating this stuff,
Sure. Yeah. No, I totally get that. That makes sense to me. I mean, I think as I told you I think I told you this when we originally had the conversation, is that I hit, oh my God, what's the bunny girl's name?
Fran.
I hit Fran's hometown and was like, oh my God, I'm finally going to get the Fran story. I'm fine. This is going to be great.
That's where I
got
am.
Nothing.
That's where I am right now.
Literally. Are you serious?
Yeah. So wait, that's where you were when you quit?
Yeah.
Huh.
I got there and I was like, if you're not going to fucking tell me about Fran, fuck this game. And I quit.
Okay. So the scene there implies that there is more to tell and it will be told. But you sounds like you never.
But at the 40-hour mark, really? Like, I mean, I had done side things, so I guess that's why I spent longer. Whereas you got there more. Well,
okay.
that and I couldn't skip the fights, I guess.
Yeah. But this is all interesting to me because, like, what side things? I have not seen any side things.
I don't know. I can't. It's been so long. Shit. Maybe there wasn't. Yeah. Maybe it really is just having to sit through the fights at regular speed. It could be, but yeah, I don't. But yeah, that's where I quit. I was like, I've had it, and I'm assuming that means that I was kind of bored with like the grinding, like before that. You know what I mean? For like that to be the tipping point. But I felt like I put a lot of time in. And I was like, just not happy anymore, not enjoying it anymore. So
the other pacing issue that I'm running into is that I find the Gambit system really interesting and really unique. And I feel like there is a mismatch going on where it's like, would you like to open more Gambit slots? Would you like to unlock these abilities? Would you like to do all these cool things? And I'm like, yeah. But my character has like 2 moves. So what the fuck is all these other what I'm unlocking things that literally have no relevance. I can't even use them. So I feel like something is misaligned with the progression system because I really am eager to like build complicated strategies and synergies between the characters. And it's literally like you can attack or you can heal. And that's all I have. And I don't know why I'm missing. I don't
think you're missing anything. I think those are flaws in the base game. And I mean, I think that, were you to say play that and then put it down and then immediately pick up like a Final Fantasy 15, I think you would pretty quickly see the improvements,
the maturity of the system.
Yeah, and also like you mentioned earlier, like what's wrong with me that I can't enjoy a simple game? I think you're probably perfectly capable of enjoying a simple game, but I think that there's a difference between enjoying a simple game. Like, for instance, I still consider Hades to be a fairly simple game despite upgrade systems. Like I think it's straightforward. But there's a difference between a simple.
But when you're in combat in Hades, you're in it, so you are really have to focus on what you're doing. Whereas this is like random encounters, grinding, mindless things, right?
What I was going to say is that those are to me, those are archaic gameplay mechanics today. Sure, you have people who want to still grind and they want to still do the old style RPG, but I would say that many gamers, I'm not going to say most or half, many gamers don't want to do that anymore because there are sophisticated and better systems. So, for instance, Final Fantasy 15 utilizes a very similar fight style to Final Fantasy 14, and they actually borrowed it from there, which was you're moving through the field, you see something, you could choose to avoid it, or you can choose to move in and move into combat. And it's like, to me, that how in like older RPGs, like you'd see something and you're like, well, I'm going to avoid it. And like most of the time you couldn't, it would run and catch you. That doesn't happen in this game. Like when you're playing this game, it kind of feels like a really clean MMO without a lot of extra junk on it. Final Fantasy 15, that is. And I was like, this is the kind of fighting I want to do. Like the only exception I have for typical old school grinding I found has been the Persona games. And I think it's because the system is basically that when you fight demons, you have the ability to absorb or rather to capture them. And then when you capture them, you have this like really fun system of being able to like combine them in what they call the Velvet Room, which is like the room where you do all your demon stuff. And like, if you combine the right ones, you'll get special hybrids that do very unique things. So like, it's got this like complex system that to me makes the grinding worthwhile, because
that's
you're like,
what it is.
Right. Like there is an element of something more than just, okay, let's grind through this fight. Okay, let's grind through this fight. Like there's more to it. But
there
other
is a
than
goal.
that,
There's a carrot. I love grinding. I don't know how to access or gain abilities or spells in Final Fantasy. Like I know intellectually, but I don't. Acquiring experience or gold doesn't seem to. I'm not working toward anything with the grind. I can't see it. You remember in Final Fantasy VI where you would equip espers, and as you fight with espers equipped, you can both summon the espers, but then slowly the espers will teach each character a spell. So you can like teach your roster of characters different combinations of spells by grinding. And that was so... There's a crazy amount of grind in that game, but it was like, well, if I just keep fighting, I'll finally get this doom spell, and that's going to be awesome because I want this character to have it. I can't make that connection with 12, and I don't see the carrot there, and that I think is what's blocking me. And also, like, you get an Esper or something, and it's like, and you get mist and intercessions, and I'm like, I don't know what these do. And then I attach them to characters. I was like, are you sure you want to put it on this character? This is permanent. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that because I don't know what this does because you didn't explain it to me. And then even when you cast the spell or you activate the Esper, like an animation happens and something happens. And I'm like, did something happen? Did I kill anything? Did I heal? I don't know what. It's very strange. There's a log of player actions where it's like, this character did this character did this, but it doesn't say everything. It only says certain things. So it's like, I would really love to know what the characters are doing in their Gambit AI sort of priority queue so that I can see if the programming that I've done for each character is working synergistically. But I can't see it because it only says what enemies are doing, and it only says what certain actions characters are doing, not all of them. So it's like these weird, they lay out like you can customize everything, and then they hide the inner workings of those systems so you don't know if they're working properly. And it's just bothering me. I don't know. I'm not having the fun I thought I would have.
Yeah, well, then that's okay, because if you had fun in the first 15 or 20 hours, you had fun. And that doesn't like, it's so funny. This reminds me of the whole line of thinking of a relationship doesn't have to last forever to be a success. And like to me, a game doesn't have to last forever for you to have enjoyed a portion of it and then be like, okay, I'm done now.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it. So I am bequeathing you the full permission to quit this game. And not only am I bequeathing it, but I'm also like, holy shit, you're in the same fucking place I was.
That's so funny, man.
That's why I asked. I was like, I have to know what set you off. And it was not remotely the same thing, but it was in the same place.
Same place.
So funny.
But I wasn't bothered. I was not bothered narratively by the thing that bothered you. Because again, I thought with like, oh, well, there's some tension here between Fran and her people. And surely this will be resolved one day. I'm just going on some quest to get out of this village now. And it was very brief. That scene was very brief. And so I understand why you were like, what the fuck? But I have to go back to it. But maybe they don't. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
No, maybe not. I don't know. I didn't stick around to find out. And now you can have a portion of your life back to go spend on something you will enjoy more.
So in my quest for like what I'm between games, what's my little portable game going to be? What am I going to do? Briefly, I will touch on Spelunky, which I did pick up, and it is very relevant in the context of roguelikes and Returnal and such, because it's a 2D platformer, which I typically don't want to play. But it is a rogue. I keep mixing the terms. It is a roguelike, not a roguelite, because you carry nothing forward, nothing, only knowledge. You when you encounter things, objects, upgrades, enemies, you gain a journal entry, so you can then refer back to things. You can refer back to information, but you do not carry upgrades forward. And it is, I mean, Spelunky's been out for 1,000 years now, it seems like, but it only recently came to Switch. So I'm sure people are familiar with this game, but I'm finding it quite extraordinary because it's brutally hard. It's a platformer, and I don't care for platform. You have to be very precise with your platforming. Procedurally generated every time the cave is different, and you're going down and you're trying to find the entrance, which goes to the next level, which goes to the next level, which goes to the next level. And it is remarkable because at first it feels like you're making no progress. You're like, dum dum dum, I'm dead. Okay, don't walk into snakes. Oh, spikes kill you. Okay, and, oh, what's this? I can't. Can't do that. And for the first like 40 runs, it feels like you are making no progress. But it is such a brilliantly designed game that you are actually making extraordinary knowledge progress, educational progress. And then by the 30th, 40th run, you're like, all right, I know what this does. I know what this does. I know what this does. Oh, here's the exit. Oh, okay, cool. Now I'm in that. Okay, now I'm in level 2. Okay, died, but wow, I made it to level 2. And you start to make. I started to make significant progress. It was almost like the difficulty curve was very steep and then levels out, as opposed to starting easy and getting hard. If that makes sense, it doesn't ramp up to a wall. It kind of starts at a wall and then cracks open in the wall, and you're like, oh, okay, I get this game. I know what to do. And you die and restart so quickly that it almost feels like, man, I screwed up. Okay, back in it. This thing happened. Okay, back in it. And you just go and go and go. And the speed at which you return is so fast that the loop, death almost doesn't feel like death. It almost feels like a gameplay loop. Death is a gameplay loop in this, in a way that is different from Hades. Hades is like, oh, I made it, I got the far, died. Whew, back to the hub. Okay, story. This guy says a thing, she says a thing. Cool, get my upgrades. And that is there's a breather in between. But Spelunky is like, you die and you're back in, and that you're just
Bam,
and
that's it.
And it's will I stick with Spelunky? Probably not. I probably will not see it through. But I am glad that I experienced this very special and important game, because it is Rogue on steroids. It is pure Rogue juice distilled into its purest form. You know
Please
what I mean?
call this episode Pure Rogue Juice. I mean, look, really, like there is no other title for this episode. Pure Rogue Juice. I know what I'm lettering tonight.
It has to be.
I know what I'm lettering tonight. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're
well,
welcome?
Once again,
Question
right?
mark?
It kind of visits the same territory of, you don't have to play it forever to have had a valuable experience.
But this one, I feel very okay with going. I'm probably going to go back to it a few more times to see what else it has to offer. Interestingly, there's something in the game that is it's something like it's a shortcut guy or something. And in the beginning, in the opening area, it's like, oh, the shortcut is closed off, so come find me in the mine, and maybe I'll open up a shortcut. And I'm like, okay, maybe there is something where if you progress far enough, you'll unlock a shortcut and then you can go right to level 2. And I finally did make it to like world 2. I think there's like 4 caves in each world, and then you get to a new biome. And in world 2, it's like, oh, now we're in the jungle world, and all the enemies are different, and they all move differently, and the traps are different. And so you get to world 2, and you're like, whoa, world 2, and I'm dead because I don't know what the fuck's going on in world 2. And then you go back to the beginning. But once you cross over to world 2, you meet this shortcut guy. He's like, oh yeah, if you donate 2 bombs, I can get the shortcut started. And I'm like, oh yes, finally a checkpoint. I can start at world 2. Nope, nothing. No. I don't understand how this system works. I presume I have to do it many more times to unlock this, whatever this shortcut is. So it was a little disappointing, but it didn't feel like the same like wall that Hades threw at me. It still feels like, all right, I ticked some box here, so soon enough I will unlock something, and so maybe I'll go back to it. There's some good resource management too. You start with ropes and bombs, and then you can visit a shopkeeper and spend you are trying to acquire like gems and gold and loot to then, the more money you get, you can spend it on power-ups like a jetpack and a freeze gun and jump boots and parachutes, so you don't fall, you don't die when you fall too far. And so every run is like, and the game does not explain what the power-ups do, so you have to buy them, use them, and then die, and then you're like, oh, that's what the parachute does. Cool. Next time I see a parachute, I will make sure to get the parachute because that's very useful in this context. And so, again, pure education, pure knowledge. You only gain knowledge. You do not gain stats or anything. And then, I don't know. Usually, I'm not a fan. Those games don't click with me, but this one feels all right. Did. So, yeah, it did. And briefly, I don't want to take too much more time here, but the other thing I do want to mention is a game, but also it is not even described as a game by the developer. It is described as a toy, and that is called Townscaper. Have you seen this in the wild or been familiar with it at all?
I have not.
$6 on both Steam and Switch. We got it on Switch, and it really is a great Switch game. Runs beautifully there, and my kids were actually very interested in it too. It is not a sim. It is a toy. It is building a beautiful town, a seaside town on this plain of water, and you just pick a color, and you start plopping little houses down into this world. And if you place the houses next to each other, they go bloop, 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 and they become a little neighborhood. And you place houses, you do a little path, and there's like a little walkway, and then you place a house, and then you put a bloop on top of it, and it becomes a 2-story house, and then it becomes a lighthouse, and then it becomes a courtyard, and then it becomes a little school or a little church looking building. And depending on where you place, I don't even know what to call them. They're not blocks. You're not placing tactile objects. You're just highlighting an area and going bloop, blue. I will put a blue thing here. And this thing, it's almost like you're creating a town out of clay or water, and it's just like bloop, 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 bloop. And there's no goal, there's no simulation, there's no management, there's no currency. It's just create a beautiful thing. And it is just lovely and cute and relaxing and peaceful. I don't even think there's music in this thing. There is just delightful sounds, colors, and shapes. And it actually is quite fun because my daughter was doing it. She was playing first. And I was like, whoa, how did you make a lighthouse? Like every time I place stuff, it just makes little houses. She's like, oh, if you place a white color here and then you choose another color on top of it, or if you place a house and you put another bloop on the top of that bloop, that's the same color, it makes a larger house. But if you alternate colors, the structure of the house is different, and you build it up and it becomes a lighthouse. So it's like there's secret combinations of structures and colors that will lead to different building shapes. And once you start to like figure those out, you can then set up your town. And also what I found interesting was I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to make a road that goes straight down here. Then I'm going to make a road that goes up here. And I'm like, as you make the little road, they're not really roads. They're more like trestles. They're more like piers almost, because everything happens on the water. And as I'm making this pier, it's like curving to the left. I'm like, no, I want to make a straight thing so I can make an intersection. And what you start to realize is the grid is very curvy. And what it actually does is it forces you to make these. It forces you to stop making like Sim City towns, and it forces you to make like quaint, adorable English seaside villas or something. Like the mechanics, the motion of the game pushes you to make like rounder, twistier kind of things that ultimately end up looking way cuter and more beautiful than what your dumb brain is like, make a grid and put houses here and there. It's much more I don't know. It's very tactile and very relaxing. And again, you know, am I going to put 40 hours into like blooping houses onto a water canvas? Probably not. But for $6, I am so happy that we now have this little toy that we can play with, and it's great for kids too. If that's something that you know what, I had for a long time, my son was playing, you know, he plays a lot of Smash Brothers. He plays a lot of Boomerang Fu. And these are very twitchy, combat focused games. And he like ramps the difficulty down to the easiest so that he can win every match. And so that's his happy place. And that's great. But like, he gets very agitated when playing these kinds of here, you know, if he's not winning, he'll get very frustrated. And I was like, I want a virtual toy that he can still get excited about playing a video game, but has no fail state and is not frustrating. And I've had my eye on this little thing for a long time. So I'm, you know, my daughter was playing it. She really enjoyed it. And I'm eager for him to like, I want to see if this clicks with him. It may not, not to be stereotypical, but he is a boy who wants to kill things. So, well,
I'm
there's no killing in this game.
Kill things. I understand.
Right, of course, absolutely. So no stereotypes, no judgment. But that is his mode. So I will be interested to see if he will jam on this thing. But anyway, Townscaper. It's lovely. It's a cute little thing.
Apparently, it's also coming to iOS and Android in October, and I will be waiting because this looks like a delightful game to play on phone.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah,
that's a good call. I recommend it.
Huzzah!
Good. All right. Shall we get out of here?
I think we're gonna get out of here.
And I think it's time for you to, I think you could squeeze in a run of Returnal before the day is out, right?
Well, I don't have to work tomorrow, so yeah, I can.
Oh, yeah, do it.
I have a 4-day weekend, and I'm super excited.
Sweet. Enjoy it. Thank you, listeners, for entering the chat with us. Our theme music is by Azure Flux. Our logo is illustrated by Just Call Me Katarina. And we'd like to hear from you. As always, have entered the chat at gmail.com. That email address is in the show notes all the time, as well as the Discord link. You heard a lot of chitter chatter from the community there. We would like you to be in there with us. Tell us what you're playing, what you're loving, what you're hating, what you're bouncing off of, what you're giving up on, what you're sticking with. Please let us know. And if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review the show in your favorite podcast platform of choice. It helps others discover this community. Before we sign off, Colette, any final words?
Kill.
Bye.